China and the Philippines clashed in the South China Sea, with the head of the Philippine military caught in the crossfire, while Chinese hackers target U.S. infrastructure. Meanwhile, there are new developments in the dispute between India and Pakistan, as well as in the conflict in Gaza, that will impact those conflicts moving into the future. These stories and more in this edition of the International Affairs News Roundup. On to the first story. Tensions are rising in the South China Sea. This time it started with two Chinese Coast Guard vessels launching water cannons at a Filipino resupply vessel in the South China Sea near the Second Thomas Shoal. This caused heavy damage to the ship's engine block, causing the Filipino ship to be damaged and towed back to port, having to abandon its resupply mission. So this isn't the first time that this has happened, so you might be thinking, well, what's the big deal? There's just one problem. The head of the Philippine military, General Romeo Brawner, was on board that ship and caught in the crossfire. After the incident, General Brawner expressed extreme anger with the Chinese, and the Philippine government called the Chinese ambassador. And while General Brawner doesn't believe that China knew that he was on board, it still highlights the increasing levels of aggressiveness that China has pursued its territorial claims in the South China Sea. The Philippines are afraid that China will militarize the Second Thomas Shoal the way that they did the Mischief Reef, which is only 25 miles away. Overall, China has built 7 new islands in the South China Sea, placing naval and air bases on those islands and using that to project combat power all throughout the South China Sea. Of course, this has been protested and resisted by other countries like Taiwan, the Philippines, Vietnam, and other countries within the South China Sea. However, none of them are really able to compete with China. And this isn't our only story of China and its increasing levels of aggression, which takes us to our next story. China isn't just targeting the Philippines, they're targeting the United States, this time in cyberspace. Chinese hackers affiliated with the People's Liberation Army have been on a campaign to target American critical infrastructure, specifically targeting systems that control water utilities, power, communications, and transportation. These intrusions are part of a larger effort to disrupt these systems in the event of a larger conflict in the Pacific between China and the United States. And while these intrusions haven't caused any disruption so far, they indicate China's desire to cause significant complications for the United States and its ability to project power in the Pacific to be able to fight China in a conflict, say, over Taiwan. This cyber campaign has been nicknamed Volt Typhoon by the US government, and it was discovered around a year ago. The Chinese military, and this is similar to other militaries, including the US military, has been public about its desire to target different kinds of systems during wartime, specifically command and control nodes, logistics hubs, communications equipment, and satellite capabilities. And while the US and China recently agreed to restore communications between their militaries, they did not discuss the issue of cyber intrusions during the recent meeting between Xi Jinping and Joe Biden. A month ago, the NSA released a warning about Chinese hackers targeting US critical infrastructure, and both the NSA and other intelligence community entities have been working together to try to identify the extent of these intrusions and find Volt Typhoon. And with all of this, the NSA is urging network administrators to use complex passwords, multi-factor authentication, update everything regularly, and limiting system privileges for every user. I mean, it's simple stuff that everybody should be doing, but, well, you would be surprised. A conflict between China and the United States isn't the only threat to security, not only around the world, but also in Asia. There's another conflict between two nuclear powers that you may not have heard of. That takes us to our next story. India is set to permanently incorporate the region of Kashmir, which is likely to anger Pakistan. India's Supreme Court has upheld the government's decision to revoke special privilege status for the regions of Jammu and Kashmir, and the court set a deadline for local elections to be held in the region. The court stated that the temporary status was really just there to pave the way for these regions to be incorporated as states into India as soon as possible. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed this as an opportunity and a beacon of hope for unity between the provinces and India in the future. Pakistan, of course, rejected the Supreme Court's decision, stating that it does not recognize the special status of Jammu or Kashmir as legitimate or legal. Kashmir has been a disputed region between India and Pakistan since the British left in 1947, and the region has been divided along a line of control since 1972. And there have been several wars and conflicts that have taken place between both Pakistan and India since that time. And while India's dispute with Pakistan is significant, it's not the only dispute that India has. It also has a dispute in other parts of Kashmir with China. And that dispute is pretty unique because both sides have agreed to, in an effort to de-escalate tensions and prevent things from escalating further, to have their troops patrol with and fight with sticks, rocks, shields, other kinds of medieval equipment like that that. And that has not stopped them from fighting. In fact, in previous years, they have fought significantly with bricks, rocks, and sticks and shields, and that has led to dozens of deaths on both sides. And while these are a series of conflicts that luckily have not turned into an active war, there is an active war that we need to be talking about, and that takes us to the next story. Hamas might be showing early signs of a collapse in Gaza. Israel claims that dozens of militants have surrendered in Gaza in recent days, with the IDF releasing footage of dozens of Hamas fighters surrendering and being taken into custody by the IDF. Benjamin Netanyahu stated that this is the beginning of the end of Hamas. All of this, of course, follows the collapse of the recent ceasefire and the UN calling for a new ceasefire to be agreed upon, but the United States rejecting that ceasefire, stating that it would only give Hamas more time to build strength and fight again. Israel continues to push further south in the Gaza Strip, isolating the town of Az-Saraj and reaching portions of Khan Yunis. Meanwhile, they have cut off completely Gaza City from the rest of the Gaza Strip and have begun to flood the Hamas tunnels with seawater. With the tunnels getting flooded and there really not being any surface routes to escape, Hamas fighters are likely starting to lose communication with their leadership in Gaza City, and that's leading to a lot of these mass surrenders that we're seeing. Not only would they be losing the will to fight, they might even just be losing the capability. Now, of course, I'm not going to show the videos, but some folks have pointed out how Hamas fighters have been stripped of their clothes, and they describe this as a humiliation tactic, but I want to kind of dive into this because that's not exactly true. Really, this is just a procedure to make sure that the enemy prisoners of war don't have any explosives or hidden weapons on them, so it really grants security not only for the soldiers, but also for the other prisoners as well. This is how the IDF has decided to go about this problem. Other militaries go about finding hidden weapons and explosives differently, but that's really all it is. Now, further north of Gaza, we find our next story. Israel has given Lebanon an ultimatum that, if left unheeded, could spark a larger regional conflict. Israel has reportedly given Lebanon, its military, and Hezbollah 48 hours to move back to the Litani River and move away from the border with Israel, or they will launch a military operation to push Hezbollah from the border. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant made this announcement recently in a meeting between different representatives from the West Bank. It's also been reported that Gallant will not allow Israeli citizens to return to their homes around the border of Lebanon until things have become more secure. Clashes between Israel and Hezbollah have been continuing since October 7th and have really corresponded levels of fighting in Gaza. For instance, during the ceasefire, the two ceased fighting. However, since the ceasefire collapsed, they have resumed fighting. Now, we've talked extensively about Hezbollah as a group and really their history, their capabilities, and everything you would really want to know. So if you're interested in that, check out this video. And we've also discussed how this could spark a larger regional conflict and how Hezbollah plays into Iran's larger proxy network. And so if you want to learn more about that, that's a much more nuanced kind of topic. So there's a lot of information to kind of dig through with that. So check out that video for all of that. Now, you guys left some comments in the previous two videos. In my last video, I completely forgot to review some of these comments. So let's dive into what you guys have been saying. Endrev Amari, totally butchered that, says, get your info from reliable sources. Don't use Hamas propaganda. Great comment. I do not use that, obviously. And I paste all my sources in the video description. You can check those out. I really try to stick with wired news agencies, so like Reuters and AP. I think that they're pretty trustworthy, and of course I really try to use multiple for each story as well, so you can check those out in the video description. Donovan Wilson said, brother, why are you so biased? The land belonged to Venezuela in the beginning. Why should the British give away something that is not theirs? That don't make no sense. Well, we'll work on the grammar, it's okay. And again, and far be it from me, an American, to try to excuse or explain away the behavior of the British in the 18th or 19th century. That's certainly not what I'm going to do here. Really, if you see the video, I'm not excusing anything, and I'm not trying to kind of sway one side or the other. Really, if anything, I'm saying that, hey, maybe invading a territory is not a good idea. And if we've seen anything from the past couple years, it's that invading to take territory just doesn't go the way you think it will. And then, of course, on the last video that we posted, which was on Friday, Southern Smoke says subbed, welcome to the group. And then Shantanu Sparu left a huge, very interesting, comment, and I've already left a reaction here, but I definitely, I appreciate these kinds of comments, and I really love kind of hearing these kinds of thoughts. So don't be afraid to just plaster me with like a, multi-paragraph comment. I do think it's interesting to see what you guys think and kind of see how you guys assess these different situations that we're talking about. So, I appreciate these kinds of comments, and I thought it was very interesting to read. So anyway, those are the updates for today. If you want to kind of dive into more of these topics that we've discussed today, leave a comment and I'll react to it on Friday. And leave a like for this video. It really helps it reach new audiences and it helps the channel. And I will see you see you all next time. Bye.